Hey guys, thanks for listening to the audio project with Deena Tearney. I have to say it's fantastic to be back recording and meeting with some amazing business leaders and innovators in our community. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. All right, Darren, I think it's time to get started. On the audio project today, we have our guest, Flash Hansen, Hawaii Director of Promotions and Marketing at iHeart Media. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's
only you get to see the nice view.
This view is crazy. I love the view that you have here. I'm jealous for sure. Yeah.
Thanks for coming in. And I have to say, I looked at your background and I should know a ton about you. I know a little bit about you, which is interesting given all of the things that you've done over time. And maybe I might have to give you the classification of maybe the hippest person that we've had on this audio project. So thank you again for being here on the podcast. Definitely by far the hippest. So with that said, maybe you could introduce yourself, current role, and then I'd love to dig into even your background.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I'm the Director of Promotions and Marketing for iHeart Radio Honolulu, which entails 7 terrestrial stations, which means stations you can dial on your car, but 9 stations overall, including digital. I also co-own a marketing firm called Modern Media with my business partner, Sydney Chu. What else? I'm also working part-time now. They're also a client with Wilson Care Group and AlohaMask.com. I think that's it. Well, the podcast thing with Maleko.
Awesome.
I mean, that's more for fun.
Yeah, you do a lot of things. Tell me, when I looked at your background and I saw all the different things throughout your career with promotions and media, nightlife, a million other cool things. How would you describe yourself in a nutshell? Like, who is Flash? Like,
I don't know. I like to do things that are just of interest to me and I'm passionate about, and it just happens. A lot of those things have been producing events, and the marketing was I would say is part of that. And the hospitality industry is my background. So just really anything and everything to do with entertainment and hospitality and, the world that surrounds that too. More indirectly, like radio is sort of indirectly a part of that, or even doing a podcast is like indirectly a part of that. But it's not like there was a game plan or anything going into it. I've just sort of always done what's of interest to me and what I think would be fun to do at the moment or challenging. I think as I've gotten older, I just like to do things that I don't know that I can pull off or I think would be really hard. But yeah, I don't have a game plan or there's definitely no master plan to any of it.
But do you consider yourself marketing genius?
Definitely not. Definitely,
promotions guru.
No, I wouldn't be working for iHeart if I was a marketing genius. No, I just feel I've been lucky. I've been fortunate. I've certainly been right guy in the right place at the right time before. But also just, I think, listening to sort of your internal, your internal, those conversations that you have with yourself, whether it's your gut or your conscience or whatever, and just I've never chased the dollar. I've always just done stuff like, I think this would be really cool to do this, or this would be really fun to do this. Like, no one's ever done an event like this before. Let's do that. Or a lot of the things that I've done were born out of a place of, I wish Hawaii had this and it doesn't. And I can wait for someone else to do it, which might be never, or why don't I just do it myself?
Yeah. It's funny that you said that, because actually when I was looking through your profile and your background, that was kind of my takeaway was innovative. I mean, we talk about innovation from a technology perspective, but when I look at what you've done, it's like innovating and creating opportunity, like in a different type of way than maybe not technology, but solving a problem and figuring out how to do it in an innovative way. What do you think of that?
I don't think I ever looked at it as like, it's a problem that like nightlife doesn't have this type of business model out there, or, you know, I just again look at things that I wish that were out in the marketplace. And there was lots of things that I've done or concepts that I've had, businesses that I've had, that I would have been happy to not have those businesses if those things existed in Honolulu before I came along. So
what's a good example?
There's several, but you know, when it came to throwing events in particular, outside of when I was the marketing director for the Wave, I started doing my own events on the side, mainly because I thought at the time, and this is definitely dating yourself because you can see how far Honolulu has come, or Hawaii has come, is, you know, in the early 2000s, I was like, you know, there's nowhere to go here where you like dress up in a suit and, you know, go buy a bottle somewhere. This is when bottle service was new. It's like you have to get on a plane and fly to Vegas or go to LA to have this higher end experience. And it's like, what if I wanted to take a girl like on a nice date somewhere? You know, the Wave is awesome, but the Wave is like the Studio 54 of Hawaii, and you do weird stuff there and it's super great. And that's where you like go on the second date or the end of the first date if it's going well. But it's like, if I wanted to dress up, like actually wear a suit and go out somewhere nice and have drinks that wasn't some stuffy restaurant, there wasn't anywhere here that you could do that. So at the time, my business partner and I, Matty Boy, who's now one of the owners of BAMP, you know, we just started putting on events with that in mind. And it was really, that never would have happened if we could have gone to the place and dressed up and had like more of an adult date, but in the like sort of nightlife kind of club experience. And we also saw, it's like, well, everyone's doing it on the West Coast. Why isn't that happening here? And why is everyone so gung-ho to jump on a plane to go somewhere else to do it? And not do it here. Apartment 3 is another perfect example of that, and that was a little before its time. It's a concept that's super common now, but when Apartment 3 opened in 2009, we took the concept of what we had been doing, which is, what if you took the best elements of a nightclub, a bar, and a restaurant and combined them all into one thing? And at the time, we were going to higher end restaurants around town and doing that. You know, we come in with our portable sound and our own staff, and we transform a restaurant like Harbor Court or, you know, Hana Hana Room, or Palomino and Harbor Court, I should say, or Longi's, and make it a high end sort of dance club experience. And it's like, after you do that for about 5 years, you're like, well, what if we just owned a spot that we didn't have to bring in all the sound and lights, and we didn't have to bring in the nightlife staffing, and they already had a really good cocktail program that included bottle service. Like, we had to bring all these elements to a restaurant. And that Apartment 3 concept, and we were doing signature cocktails with, you know, fresh pressed juices and locally organic and all the buzzwords. And at a time when no one else was doing it. And then after we opened, and you see it now, every place is, you know, the bevies and pint and jiggers, that style of concept where it's a little bit of a hybrid. People weren't doing yet. And that was just, again, because that's just what we wanted.
We wanted it. That's cool. That's awesome. Well, I love your entrepreneurial background. I think that's awesome. You also, you know, from a PR and marketing perspective, I wanted to get your thoughts about the role of traditional media, social media, to help businesses. And I think in particular, you talked about challenges, adversity, and like problem solving. What do you see as like the role of both traditional and social media in this climate?
I mean, I think every business and every target demo that business goes after consumes media in different ways, right? So there's no like one size fits all answer to that. Like for anything that I personally do, I'm like, print is dead. I haven't paid for print in, you know, over a decade. But if I have a client who targets 55 plus, you know, I'll buy some print because that's what that consumer, you know, that's where their eyeballs are going. Yep. You know, it really just depends. In a general sense, traditional media like print TV and I hate to say it, radio is not as strong or as prevalent as it once used to be. And the great thing about digital that you don't get with any of the traditional media is the immediate metrics and the analytics on the back end that tell you exactly how people are responding to that. But having said that, if I want to target my parents or my grandparents, like an Instagram ad isn't going to cut it. Right. So I just really think you need to be smart, and you also do need to have a well-rounded approach. I don't think there's like, whatever the thing is, it's only digital or for this or only radio for that. Like, it does have to be a little bit of everything. I do think that people need to hear a message several times in several different ways before it sinks in. So I think you just need to be smart about that. As my background being my background, obviously I'm very passionate about like spending the money to make the money. And a lot of people that I don't want to say don't know any better, but don't know any better. In particular, like if they're hiring my marketing firm, it's like more marketing means sends out another MailChimp email, and more marketing means post more on Facebook, but don't boost it. It's like, you do all the free stuff, but that's icing on the cake. Like, you got to spend the money.
Agree. Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. When you look at Hawaii right now, there are definitely some industries that are that hit they feel the brunt, right? Like, especially when the lockdown first happened in March, there were tourist related organizations were certainly they got hit.
They still are.
Immediately. It's still, yeah, exactly. Early, because we have some clients that are in that industry, not as much, but we do have a few. And when that first happened, I remember reaching out to many of them and just kind of checking in and seeing how they were doing. If you put yourself in the mind of those kinds of organizations, or maybe if you were a leader at one of those organizations, maybe a helicopter tour company or one of these event-driven tourist kind of organizations, what would you be doing right now with your marketing and PR strategy? What would be running through your mind as from that background?
Modern Media does have 2 hotel clients, so we were very close to this. And I mean, in a span of a week, it was like full steam ahead to like complete shutdown overnight. And the hotel industry is just, they're hurting right now. And different hotels are looking at it in different ways. Yep. Some hotels like the Outriggers are still open. Alohilani just opened August 1st. Lots of other hotels are taking a wait and see approach, maybe September 1st, but we don't know. Right. It's like sort of a moving target. And if you're a local hotel or a local business, and we have other non-hotel clients in Waikiki, it's like you've spent your whole life only essentially marketing to tourists, and the local market has been an afterthought. But you have to aggressively go after locals right now, and it's you got to make lemonade out of lemons. You got to tell a local person, all the stuff you hate about Waikiki doesn't exist right now. So take advantage of that while you can. It's actually a unique selling point to get locals back into Waikiki. And I know the locals that have been back into Waikiki doing the staycation thing, and we're like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's like, yeah, it's Waikiki. Yeah. You just never go there. And I get all the reasons why you don't, but again, all those reasons are non-existent right now. There's certain businesses that are going to be harder to pivot to than others. If you're a parasailing jet ski company, it's going to be harder to target locals. They have their own access to beach activities. They don't need to go and pay you to do it. And you're also priced towards a Japanese tourist or whatever that a local person isn't going to pay anywhere near that, even if they were going to spend the money. So I mean, you really do need to be smart. Yeah.
And I think some people have, maybe the restaurants are a good example. We're just shifting a little bit, right? You've come from a restaurant background. You just mentioned Apartment 3, and I think that is a good example, like how restaurants have pivoted. You've seen a bunch of them, obviously the takeout food, but even some like packaging of beverages and stuff. I know I picked up a few of those, and I think that was really smart to start figuring out ways of, doing what you can. But from a marketing perspective, I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that too.
Well, first of all, as soon as I'm done with this podcast, I'm going straight to Bevy to pick up my at-home old-fashioned kit from Bevy.
Nice.
And Bevy's smart. Bevy is categorized, whether you like it or not, your bar or restaurant or nightclub or concert venue like the Republic is going to have a categorization from the Liquor Commission based on your sales, how much food sales versus how much alcohol sales. And so those sales numbers dictate what you are. You can call yourself a restaurant, but if 70% of your sales are from alcohol, you're not a restaurant, you're a bar. And so like Bevy was a super smart pivot is they already had the restaurant right next door to Bevy called Taka'ako, great name. And so through Taka'ako, through the restaurant, you're able to order the online, takeout beverages, the to-go beverages. And kudos to our local government that, like they have across the country, have waived, their to-go and online delivery, alcohol rules to throw these guys a bone because they really need it. But right now, any business owner in any type of industry is, if you aren't day to day, hour to hour, able to change, and pivot is an overused word, I think, but if you aren't able to be fluid with your decision making, you are definitely going to suffer. And there is people and businesses out there, they get stuck in their ways. And we've been doing this forever, and it's been great. The economy's been booming for so long. We've always done it this way, and it's going to work. Cool, it's not working right now. So you got to be able to figure it out. And even, just from what the LG said this morning, things that I was thinking about yesterday, now after this morning, have changed. And so you can't freak out or whatever. You got to immediately get on the phone and just start,
figuring it out.
Figuring it out. And it's a cliche, but you can't control the things you can't control.
Exactly.
So just worry about the things you can control, and whatever you can't control, you just got to roll with it.
Yeah. Are you seeing any restaurants doing cool things that you're like, oh yeah, that's a good call? I mean, I think an example that comes to mind is more storytelling, using the time to really tell the story of your brand, your recipes, like how these things came to be. Are there any other cool examples? I mean, just in light of our audience being, mostly business leader, people that are interested in business and tech, innovation. Are there cool things that you've seen where you've been like, that was really
I am on the wrong podcast. This is the wrong demo. Tech people listening to me talk. I tell you guys how to make a cocktail and get drunk, but
that's what we need too.
The tech thing isn't my thing. I'm the guy that's smart enough to hire I call them my tech nerds to go do your nerd stuff and figure it out. If I can't get my phone to work, where's the youngest person in the room? Come fix this for me. There's certain businesses that just completely by luck, good or bad, are positioned in a certain way right now. Restaurants that have more outdoor space obviously are going to be doing better. Deck, Waikiki on the third floor of the Queen Kapi'olani Hotel, almost their entire footprint is outside. Or it's inside, but it's like, it's open on two of the walls, and it's almost like you're in a carport kind of situation.
Did they reopen after being closed?
They reopened, even though the Queen Kapi'olani Hotel is still closed. They've been open since June, and they are thriving. And one of the reasons I think they're thriving, it's the same reason they were doing well before, is you're mainly outside, and people are going to want to eat outside right now if they can. If you're a restaurant that doesn't have an outdoor capability, it's going to be tougher for you to succeed right now. And again, that's through no fault of your own, right? The mayor is allowing, you need to apply for it, but they're basically giving permits to anyone that wants to put tables and chairs on their sidewalk. What they don't tell you is the Liquor Commission then has to approve the governor or the mayor's permit, and the Liquor Commission actually has the final say, not the mayor's office, as far as getting your tables and chairs out on your sidewalk. But what if you don't have a sidewalk in front of your business? It's really the restaurants that I've seen do well have an outdoor space right now. Shorefire is set to reopen an international marketplace, and they just coincidentally have this massive lanai, and they're going to be able to do all this seating and fun stuff out on the lanai. And if I have a restaurant that doesn't have an outdoor space, I'm trying to figure out how I can take advantage of the space, out in front of my place. There's things I've seen done on the mainland that I haven't seen anyone do here that I thought would be super fun, like, having the servers and inner tubes, or, it's like, let's have fun with it. People are taking this so seriously, as they should. But when you're in the entertainment industry, when you're in the hospitality industry, you need to be able to make light of it and poke fun at it, because people are on edge and people will appreciate that as well. And let's face it, it's a great marketing tool, right? Like if your server's running around in an inner tube, or he's got those, what are the hand grabber thing, serving you your food with the hand grabber thing. Of course, you're going to take a picture and you're going to post it on Instagram and do all this stuff, and people are going to want to come to your place because of that. So you need to be able to think creatively about, again, how do I make lemonade out of these lemons? Like, let's just have fun with it. It is what it is. It's out of your control. So how do we do the best that we can? Keep everybody safe, do everything right, but like put a smile on people's face too. And granted, in tech, that might not be like a good answer. I don't know.
No, I think it's great.
That's not my world, but in the world that I live and operate in, you want to be able to have fun with it.
Well, no, I think it makes sense. I mean, our customers are all businesses, right? And so chief marketing officers, VPs of sales, people that run service organizations, and many of them have had to really look at what are they tracking inside of their systems like Salesforce, so that they can be more responsive to customer. And really, it's marketing. It's the same thing we do. I don't know if you've ever done any marketing automation. I know you mentioned MailChimp and some tools like that to send out, but that's really what it's about. It's creating more unique experiences for their customers and figuring out how they're engaging digitally. I would imagine now, everyone says everyone's got more time to stare at social media and consume so much more digital content. It's also a little bit like a fire hose, it seems like lately. It's just there's so much, and you're competing with so much, and picking and choosing what you look at and how you become different in that space, I think, is a challenge that many of our customers are even dealing with. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on how to kind of, get through that. I mean, it's a fire hose. There's so much.
So when things first started going south, end of March, beginning of April, you saw huge spikes in TV viewing, and this is locally and nationally. Huge spikes in TV viewing, huge spikes in radio listenership, huge spikes in social media. And then what happened after about a month is it not only it went down into pre-COVID levels below that, because people were overly inundated, not only with information, but it's like everywhere you looked, it's COVID, bad news, bad news.
Sure.
So after a while, of course, what are you going to do? You're going to tune out, and you're going to turn it off completely. And then that happened for a little while, and then there was about a dip for about a month. And now I'm not as up to speed on TV, because that's not an industry I'm directly involved in. But as far as radio, in this last book that came out for iHeart, our numbers are stronger than, and our numbers are always good, but our numbers are stronger than they were pre-COVID. I mean, some of these numbers are like the best numbers we've seen in 3 or 4 years. And part of that is media trying to find the balance of, we can't just be all news and all doom and gloom all the time. And how do we balance that? Even now, as things are getting worse, it's like, okay, we're not going to be like every break on the radio I'm talking about COVID. Like, you just can't. People want an escape from that. If they want the news, they're gonna jump on their Hawaii News Now app or whatever. So it's like, why are people tuning into you? People aren't going on Instagram to get COVID news, so stop posting, all these memes and all this information about that, because every platform has its uses, and people turn to news platforms for the news, right? Other than that, it's like, I want to release, I want to break from all that. So I think finding the balance, at least for radio, has helped us see. The numbers are phenomenal, really. Like, I literally, the last book that came out, I was like, I can't even believe that these numbers are real. So, and it's interesting because it did dip You know, it was the spike and then the dip, and now it's like we're back and actually better and stronger than ever. But I mean, the reasoning for that is just pure speculation on my part. You know, I don't know.
And I think you're right. I mean, I think it's going to be this just constant ebb and flow with a lot of things that are going to be really unpredictable over the foreseeable, to be honest. It's a little tough to predict. I've heard different people predicting events coming back within Q1, Q2, and like even that, like I'm starting to kind of, it's hard to imagine. What are your thoughts on events? I know you're big in the event space, or have been in the past.
I'll tell you, there's a couple people that are smarter than me that have commented in this one quote. Live Nation, the largest concert company in the world, they do 200 to 400 shows a day worldwide. Obviously, you know, pre. Yeah. One of their big VPs said a month or two ago that they didn't expect concerts back till 2021. And at the time, it's like 2021, that seems forever ago. And now last week, one of the founders of Lollapalooza said he doesn't see concerts coming back in the way that we know them until 2022.
Jeez.
And there's almost no point in speculating because, again, it's just like completely out of your control. But it is, I mean, these are questions that I would be asking if I was in your position right now interviewing me. And these are questions that I ask other people myself all the time. And I get it. People like to be like, when is this going to end? It's not going to end until people, you know, wash their hands, socially distance, and wear a mask and do all the stuff. Having said that, I think realistically, if concerts come back, let's say Q1, Q2 in 2021, or let's just say, to broaden the scope, events. And whatever your definition of an event is, at this point, it's like anything over 25 people, really, right? Whatever your definition of an event is, if it comes back in 2021, there's going to be significant cap limitations. There's going to be significant parameters that you will need to work around. And it's not going to come back in a way that you would think of as normal pre-COVID anytime soon. So just because I used to do all the marketing at the Republic, we'll use that as an example. It's easy math because it's a 1,000 cap legal space. So that means by law you could have up to 1,000 people in that room legally. And the Republic is this perfect little square. I mean, it's a perfectly designed concert venue in many ways. Maybe, you can have a concert in 2021, but your cap is 25%. So now you're selling 250 tickets, and people need to be spread out, and you're putting, you know, whatever, paint or tape on the floor, and it's like your ticket pod 7, and ticket pod 7, you go to that circle 7 on the floor, and you can only be in that circle. And it's like, okay, we're at a concert now, but it's like, this is a different experience.
For sure.
And there's a lot of, you know, humans crave connectivity, and, you know, they crave that interaction, and it's hard for us to interact the way we would otherwise if there's this table in between us and we're sitting diagonally, and, you know, we can't touch and hug, and we're in Hawaii and everyone wants to hug and high five and you know, hugs and kisses and all the stuff. So I think even when things come back, especially initially, there's going to be a learning curve. You're going to be, you know, whether it's walking through like a cleaning mist and doing, you know, everyone's getting their temperatures checked, and, you know, maybe you need to show on your phone, look, I just got a COVID test, you know, within X amount of days. There is going to be things that are set up that are going to make it not feel like normal. I think, and I used to not, well, I wasn't sure before, but now I'm thinking more and more that for what we think of as like a concert or what we think of as like a full-scale wedding, I don't think that realistically that will be back until significantly past Q1, Q2. It wouldn't surprise me if it was 2022. And even then, you're still going to have all those parameters in place. Absolutely. We're still going to be wearing the masks, and there's, you know, hand sanitizing everywhere, and temperature checks and all the stuff. And, you know, did you take the vaccine? You know, show me the proof. There's going to be a lot of weird stuff going on. And I think a lot of it, just like post 9/11 with airports, a lot of it will just be here forever, and that'll just be the new norm. You know, people in Japan are like, we've been wearing masks forever being sick. How rude is it when you don't wear a mask? That's just a part of their culture. So I don't really know, but I know that the concert industry and the music industry as a whole are really, really suffering right now. Even more so than bars and restaurants, because number one, people aren't used to or wanting to pay for music anymore. So you can put out a new album, but people aren't going to pay like $18 to go download that new album. You can sell merch online, and some people have been doing that, and they've been having a charity component to that. But really, it's, in a general sense, very hard for artists to make money. You're going to see a lot more virtual concerts where people, you're paying for like a virtual ticket, and you're going to get, with full production, an artist performing a show and having to get creative on what that show looks like to make it worth it, so that you don't just go and YouTube one of their old concerts for free.
Yeah.
They're in a very, very tough position right now. And not just them, it's the concert venues, it's the concert promoters. I mean, and that's the world that I just came from, as recently as 2 years ago, and they're in a tough spot. If your concert venue wants to open, but no artists want to fly out to where you are, what are you going to do? If no artist wants, it's like if my capacity of my venue is 25%, do I only pay the artist 25%? It's tricky.
It is. It really is. Well, when COVID-19 first happened and everybody was in lockdown, there were a lot of artists that were like doing their like at home concert and stuff like that. I feel like that's kind of died off. Have you seen more of those?
It has and it hasn't. Initially, people were doing it because they were bored, and then they realized they could do a virtual tip jar and make a little bit of money that way. Some local artists, Tavana was the first to do a ticketed virtual concert, and he had full production, and he made it. Essentially, it's like, how do we make this worth your while? Cool. So again, you don't just go and look at an old YouTube video.
Right.
On the consumer side, people are starting to understand, I am going to tip this artist, or I am going to buy this virtual ticket because I am supporting my favorite musician. I'm keeping them on the island. I'm keeping food on their table and a roof over their heads, and so they don't have to move, or they don't have to, God forbid, get a real job. And a lot of local musicians, not the name musicians, but the people that play in the corner of your restaurant, the people that are, overnight, Modern Media, we book entertainment for a lot of places. Overnight, we had 24 artists that just overnight, I said, sorry, you went from all these consistent weekly gigs with us to nothing as far as our clients were concerned. And so overnight, everyone, just like that, 24 artists. And a lot of them were playing 2 or 3 nights for us, because we would rotate, certain artists can play at every one of our different client spots. Those types of artists, the artists that you don't know their name, but they're just in the corner killing it for $100 an hour or whatever at your favorite neighborhood bar or restaurant, those are the guys that are really suffering. They're not designed to play originals. They're just playing covers, and it's hard for those guys to support themselves right now. And a lot of them are having to turn to, normal work, I guess you would say. And whether they come back from this, I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's a very, the hospitality industry, entertainment industry are very, very hard hit, for sure.
Yeah, that's painful. Yeah, and you're right. I think now people are looking at all of these things as supporting. It's an act of support for a local restaurant or your favorite musicians or whatever. It's an act of support, which is nice.
But you're right. It has, the streaming thing for artists has gone down significantly, and the ones that are doing it are trying to monetize it now more than ever.
Yeah. From our clients, which are mostly businesses, and maybe you see this with some of your clients too, is they're anxious to get back to doing events that they, would promote or get leads or, create awareness or do whatever. And it's like conferences canceled, big, organized events where people would come
all
in.
Those networking events.
It's
all
sad.
Those package cocktail parties.
Yeah, so it's tough for them, like figuring out when will that be the case or what will replace it. Is now the question, right? Like what replaces that thing that we used to do, and is it maybe not the same, but how can we make that?
And also, if you're in sales, if you're really strong face to face, person to person, how do you close a deal via Zoom? How do you close a deal on the phone now? How are you cold calling people in a way that, like, maybe you would go to some networking event and meet 5 or 6 people that turn into leads versus like now I have to DM them on LinkedIn or something. Like
It's been an inundation of that, I'll tell you what.
And
oh my gosh.
If your strong suit is in person, and that is the case with most salespeople, you need to hone and develop a type of sales skill set that you never had to use, or was rusty, or just isn't your strength. You know, and there's no easier way to get a deal done than, at least in my world, than over a drink, or, Absolutely. You know, this isn't my world, but a lot of people, they get their deals done on the golf course. And, you know, but whatever it is, it's that in-person thing.
Golf is still open, so that works.
Yeah.
For
right?
them.
For them, yeah. So it's tougher. And if you're in, you know, if you are in sales, or if you are one of those people that's responsible for generating leads for your company, I mean, you can only message so many people, and I see it. I'm getting all these weird messages, and what do? You ignore it. I don't know who this person is.
It's too much.
There's no face. There's no connection. It's like, oh my God, you know, Joe, you know, you went to high school with my cousin, and what? I'm like, you know, it's like there's none of that.
Yeah.
Let me buy you a drink, and then, you know, it's just it's completely gone away, and to have that sort of connectivity and get someone to trust you and put their money where their mouth is to buy whatever it is that you're selling. It's really hard to do that on Microsoft Teams.
It sure is. Well, it's funny because, as you know, we have an office in Sydney, and Australia has a strong coffee culture where anytime you email each other and you'll be like, oh yeah, let's meet, it's always like, let's go have a coffee chat. Let's go have a coffee chat. And all of that was gone. And so even some of the people that because I came back to Honolulu and I was meeting a bunch of people in Australia, and they're like, yeah, I kind of don't have the coffee chats anymore. And in a way, it was maybe a good change because you saved some time traveling between coffee chats. But then I think now people are starting to go like, gosh, I kind of needed that. I missed that. And how do we recreate those connections? So yeah, it's going to be a learning curve for some.
Well, and let's face it, I mean, after your third or fourth Zoom meeting of the day, it's like, you know, it's so taxing on you.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of the time factor, you know, of saving all that time driving back and forth and all that, I mean, there's definitely something lost there.
Absolutely. Definitely. Is there anything on your mind, anything else on your mind? Gonna transition to guest hot takes in a minute, but wanted to ask you before then,
I don't know what that means, but I like the sound of it. Let's get this party started.
Yeah. Anything on your mind, you know, just in the world that we're in now that kind of I feel like as this whole thing has happened since like March to now, there's different thoughts and perspectives and even words in my brain. And more recently, it's been resiliency. It's like really been like the thing, like investing in the business and being resilient because, you know, you make it through, right? And so I don't know, I was just curious if through this journey, if there's been anything on your mind that you'd like to end out with.
I think, you know, one thing that maybe I haven't thought about it as much lately because now I'm in that mode, but when things first started going south really, and it's like April, when things shut down in particular, end of March, beginning of April, I thought that everyone who was in a position to do this, I thought, if you're in a position to help people, if you have the platform and the resources to help the people that need it on your island, in your community, in your state, you have a moral obligation to do so. And it was interesting, and it continues to be interesting to see who steps up, and the who being an individual or a corporation, a business, whatever, who is stepping up and who isn't stepping up. And on both sides, it's not necessarily the people that you would expect, but I firmly believe that if you are in a position to help other people right now, you absolutely have to do that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Good one. Okay, we're going to do a little transition to guest hot takes.
Hot takes.
Yeah, so I'll state a word or topic, and you just share the first thing that comes to mind.
Is he allowed to laugh?
He's a quiet laugher, so you're good.
I thought I saw him laughing a couple of times. It's okay to laugh. Jeez.
All right. There's only a few, so don't worry. This won't last long.
I love them. Bring them all day long.
Books or podcasts?
Oh boy. I mean, if I were to be honest, lately it's podcasts, mainly because you can do it while you're doing 20 other things. But I do love to read. But if I were to, in a general sense, books, but right now, podcasts. Yeah.
I like it. Good. Whiskey or wine?
Oh, God, whiskey.
It felt like a dumb question, but I had to ask.
Come on.
TikTok.
No.
No answer on that one.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it is owned by the Chinese, right? Mm-hmm. And there's all this, they are like, same thing with Facebook. They're collecting all your data. Mm-hmm. They are going to be able to create an AI version of you at some point, whether it's Facebook or TikTok or someone else. And if you're going to be giving your data away, it's better to keep it in your own country than giving it to another country. And what's happening right now with, Microsoft possibly buying TikTok is very interesting to me for many reasons. And there's many layers as to why Trump may be wanting to make that happen. But I have an account, but I don't use it in part because I am worried about, what are they doing with that information? And again, Facebook and Instagram are doing the same thing. For sure. But at least it's like they're, in my country.
Yeah. All right. Zoom.
I love it and I hate it. I guess it's not if, it's a matter of when. When someone figures out, some little 17-year-old nerd in his bedroom is going to figure out how to get rid of the lag time and have it be like a regular phone conversation between people, they're going to be a multi-billionaire.
Mm-hmm. That's actually the big thing why a lot of times the face-to-face is so frustrating. We at our company, we've always been used to being remote. I have a team in San Francisco, a team in Denver, and of course Sydney, and then our team here. And sometimes the guys would work from home. But it'd be so frustrating when you're talking to someone, you're like, there's a lag, can't hear you, slow down, just hang up, call back. I'm like, you can't communicate, right? When it drives me nuts.
In the whole, we're 4 or 5 months in, and it's like, Chelsea, your mic is on mute, and you're trying to talk. I can't unmute my mic. Who's the host? Unmute Chelsea's
Take
mic.
Control
It's
of
just
this.
we're 4 or 5 months in, and we're still dealing with this. And it's like, why don't you just call me in 10 minutes when it takes everyone that much time to get it together, and I'll jump in. It's so incredibly frustrating. But it's also, how else, are you really going to meet with people right now? And the Teams has the same issues. They all have the same issues with that lag time. If someone could figure out how to get rid of that lag time, oh my God.
All right. The Impossible Burger.
I like meat.
Okay. Live concerts.
Love them.
I know.
Love them.
Know.
Yeah.
Salesforce.
As we talked about off air, everyone at iHeart uses Salesforce. They all seem to like it. I use it as little as possible. But from my interactions with it, and obviously the Salesforce that we're using is created specifically for the back end of iHeart and radio spots and scheduling and all that. I like it.
All right. Good stuff. Well, on that note, I think we can call this done.
All right.
So thank you for being here. It was super fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank both of you guys.
All right.
Next time I'm on, I'm going to get them to laugh out loud. That's my goal.
All right. That sounds like a good goal.